With May the 4th weekend passing, here are my ranking of the Star Wars franchise in order. Starting from the bottom, number 11, we got The Rise of Skywalker, and honestly, I could only judge how bad it is based on this one quote from the movie. Somehow Palpatine has returned. This is the definition of a director flipping off another director that came before it, and also the fact that they retconned and butchered so many character story arcs that it was a complete mess of an ending to a trilogy. And also one of the lamest and dumbest ways to bring back a certain villain from the dead. And at number 10, we got The Last Jedi, and honestly, it is a little better than The Rise of Skywalker, but I still have my gripes with The Last Jedi just as much as I do with The Rise of Skywalker, if not a little less than The Rise of Skywalker. And this is the beginning of the end of the quality dipping in Star Wars for sequel trilogy, with Rian Johnson flipping on J.J. Abrams, just like how J.J. flipped on Ryan in The Rise of Skywalker. While I do apply to Ryan for his ambition, also the fact that, well, he did try to make something different, he ended up butchering several characters, most notably Luke, because Luke was far different from the character that we know and love from the original trilogy, and also the fact that Finn was just reduced to a guy who says Ray all the time, and the fact that we don't get a lot of character development from him, he's just reduced to a side character that led to nothing. They should have actually made him to a Jedi from the get-go, just like The Force Awakens foreshadowed it, which we'll get to a little bit. But all in all, Last Jedi is just as much of a weak sequel as The Rise of Skywalker was. At number 9, we got Attack of the Clones. And look, I love the prequel trilogy with all my heart, and I'll defend it till the end of my grave, but you know what? I gotta admit that the Attack of the Clones is pretty much kind of the weakest one, depending who you ask, but it does have its flaws, especially the Anakin Padme romance scenes, the weak dialogue, and also the fact that it does have some cringy lines in the movie, but I feel like the pros outweigh the cons, though, especially with Ian McGregor taking the cake as Obi-Wan, him carrying the movie on his back, and then we got introduced to the clones that will get featured in the Clone Wars, and also they will get further fleshed out in the Clone Wars later down the lane, and we get introduced to many other clones, and we got Jango Fett, of course, who's a badass bounty hunter, and we got the Battle of Genosha, which is so awesome, and also it's one of the best battle sequences at the end of any Star Wars movie to date. And also the fact that we got Yoda versus Dooku. And speaking of Dooku, we gotta talk about Christopher Lee as Dooku. He's one of the best characters in Star Wars. On the bench, the fact that one of the best villains, and also one of the best casting choices to cast as a villain in Star Wars. I mean, cast Christopher Lee in any villain role, and he just absolutely just nails it. He never misses as a villain. And at number 8, we got the Phantom Menace, and look, it's not as good either, but you know what? Again, I grew up with the prequel trilogy, defended to death. Does it have flaws? Yeah, it does have flaws, but it did give us some good stuff. I mean, we got Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, who's definitely the most underrated of the Jedi, especially with his usual maverick personality, and also the fact that he goes against the council and him believing that the Jedi should not fight in a war that isn't theirs. And then we got Ian McGregor as Padawan Obi-Wan, of course. I mean, he nails Obi-Wan in every movie, but it gets better and better as each movie passes. And also, this was the movie that introduced to the great Maul, and honestly, while Maul is in this movie, he's not in a whole lot, doesn't have a lot of lines, but he gets further fleshed on the Clone Wars and has done a lot more justice in the Clone Wars and in the movies. And number 7 is, of course, Solo, a Star Wars movie. And look, was it needed? No, it wasn't needed. Was it a good, underrated movie? Yeah, it was. And did I enjoy it? Yeah, I enjoyed it pretty much. Was it unfortunate that we never got Harrison Ford as a young Han Solo in a prequel movie before in his prime? Yeah, it was unfortunate, but at the end of the day, we got Alden Ehrenreich, and Alden Ehrenreich did a really good job with what he was given as the character in his younger days. But let's be honest, Childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover, was the highlight of the movie as Lando Calrissian. He felt like a young Billy D. Williams, but he made the role his own, though, and stole every scene that he was in. And also the fact that we got Han Solo and Chewbacca to meet in a live-action movie, that was actually pretty good. That was actually pretty cool. And number 6, we got The Force Awakens. And look, I know a lot of people are turning against this movie because of what came after, but let's not focus on what came after. Let's focus on what came during that time, though, when it first came out. It was actually pretty good. I mean, for a movie that was kickstarting a whole new trilogy, and also the fact that it did have that sense of nostalgia while pushing the trilogy forward and having new stories that were building up to, which honestly led to nothing, but hey, it was trying to do its best, though. And he even introduces characters like Rey, Finn, and Poe, and Kylo Ren, who are still new to the franchise, and then BB-8 was also a show steerer, the new R2-D2 pretty much, and Han Solo was actually a pretty good mentoring figure in the movie. But overall, it was a good starter pack to what could have been a really fascinating sequel trilogy, what came before it. And number 5, we got A New Hope, and look, I know it's kind of controversial place in number 5, but hear me on this. But it is for the most part iconic, though, especially with the fact that we got Luke, we got Han, Leia, Vader, Obi-Wan for the first time, and also R2-D2, C-3PO, and the fact that those characters remain iconic since day one, it just speaks volumes to itself how truly iconic of a masterpiece this movie really is. Aside from some weak dialogue and some action sequences that are kind of dated this day, let's just say that we Star Wars fans are forever thankful that this masterpiece happened, and also the fact that it spawned a franchise that we fans are eternally thankful for and passing it on to future generations as the years go by. And at number 4, we got Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which honestly, the very first spin-off that Disney has made from Star Wars, and the fact that it feels like an actual Star Wars movie because there is no Force sensitive other than Vader, of course, but he only appears in a good 5 or 10 minutes in the movie. But other than that, though, it's mostly a morally great, complex world in comparison to the Star Wars movies, which is about good and evil. And also the fact that Disney freaking had a dark twist at the end, which honestly nobody makes it out alive, and the fact that we finally got to find out how the Death Star plans are stolen after years of theorizing how it happened, even though for us Legends fans of the old Star Wars continuity, we already knew how it happened, but it was cool how they reinvented it for the canon, though. But the best part has got to be when Vader comes down the hallway sequence, which is filmed the last second, fun fact. And also that Vader was always the show stealer in every movie that he's in. And number 3, you got Return of the Jedi, which honestly, I know some people that rank it as the weakest of the original trilogy, but for me, personally, it's honestly the second best one, especially because of Vader, his character being as best, with him being so morally conflicted over Luke or the Emperor, and also the fact that Luke is as best in this movie as a Jedi Master, and him with the green lightsaber, which honestly makes him stand out more as a Jedi than him with a blue lightsaber. And there was a lot of great ones in Return of the Jedi, such as the Sarlacc pit, which honestly, it had that little weak Boba Fett scene, but other than that, though, it's like, it was a fun action sequence. And then we got the Battle of Endor, honestly one of the best final battle sequences of all time. And then we also got the whole Vader redeeming himself in front of Luke, which goes down as one of the most iconic redemption stories of all time. And also Vader dying at the end still makes us cry to this day, believe it or not. And Return of the Jedi still goes down as one of the best finales to a trilogy to date. And number 2 is Revenge of the Sith, which if you were asking me back then, elementary school, back when I was growing up with Star Wars, I would have said this is number 1, but another overtook its throne as the more I got older. But what makes Revenge of the Sith such a really good installment of the Star Wars franchise, and it being the best in the prequel trilogies, that the bad guys actually won in this. It's a definition of the trilogy that the good guys don't always win. Sometimes the bad guys get the W. And also the fact that we get to see Anakin go into Vader's suit, which is definitely an iconic moment. But the best part is that if you watch the Clone Wars before Avengers of the Sith, or even after you watch Avengers of the Sith and watch the Clone Wars and go back to it, it makes this movie a full-on masterpiece. And number 1, of course, is Empire Strikes Back. I mean, this is the definition of how you make a good sequel right here, ladies and gents. Vader's as all-time best here. The Emperor gets introduced. The tone is a lot darker, and the stakes are risen higher. Yeah, it's a lot better than A New Hope. And also the fact that we get to have one of the most iconic fight scenes in Best Film with Vader versus Luke, still a masterpiece. And the fact that we get the iconic introduction of Yoda when Luke goes to train with him on Dagobah. And also the fact that Empire Strikes Back does give us the best quote in all Star Wars with, "No, I am your father," which is to this day still misquoted as "Luke, I am your father," when really it is "No, I am your father." But all in all, Empire Strikes Back is a classic masterpiece. No other Star Wars movie media will ever top this work of art, ever. And all in all, that goes But that just completes the list of the best Star Wars movies in the franchise. What are your guys'? Comment down below.